It's actually the most common rare disease.
Like a number of others, 1 in 2,500 people that are out there. I've had it since birth.
You know it's around and they're having symptoms that they don't really want to face.
My choice is not to be a victim. Finding those strengths and how do you lean into those, develop those?
And I had a lot of fear in the back of my head and a lot of willingness, if I'm being vulnerable, to really face
And
it.
don't get distracted by everything else. Got to know if you're hitting your mission and putting all your resources, thoughts, decisions, problem solving you do against that mission.
If you can approach people that way and leadership that way, you're not only going to be a better leader, but you're going to.
Welcome to P Cubed. I'm Preston Poore, and today's episode is especially personal for me. Joining us is Laura McNeil, the president of the CMT Research Foundation and a fellow CMT warrior. Laura's leadership is driving innovation and hope for those of us living with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. In this episode, we're going to be diving deep into the realities of CMT, from its impact on our lives to the incredible advances being made in research. We'll discuss how to overcome challenges, exercise strengths in new ways, and find hope in the midst of struggles. Laura, welcome to the show. I just want to jump right into this and talk a little bit about what CMT, Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease is. Tell me about how it was named, what it is, what are the symptoms, what do you know about the disease?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm glad you're asking it because it doesn't have anything to do with teeth, which is usually where people go because of the name. Charcot-Marie-Tooth was actually discovered in 1886 by three different researchers. It's their last name that bring forward the name of the disease. So Jean-Marie Charcot, Pierre-Marie, and Howard Henry Tooth. And so they named the disorder after them. Charcot-Marie-Tooth, more affectionately known as CMT.
It's not Country Music Television Awards, right? Not to be confused with.
No. And what it is a progressive degenerative disease that involves your peripheral nervous system, which are the nerves that branch out from the brain and the spinal cord to other parts of the body, which include your arms, your hands, your legs, and your feet. Typically, the brain and nerves are constantly communicating with each other, but with CMT, the motor nerves that control your muscles and the sensory nerves that carry sensory information like pain and temperature to the brain don't work properly. They have trouble sending signals to and from the brain, and this results in numbness, sensory loss, muscle weakness or atrophy, and nerve degeneration that over time weakens the muscles and your muscles start to deteriorate. So symptoms may begin as early as birth or have a later onset in young adulthood or early adulthood, and they become gradually worse over time. Some symptoms for CMT you want to look for in young adults or teens would be trouble gripping or holding onto things. That's that sensory loss. Tripping or struggling with their balance. You might see shuffling or marching or dragging the feet when walking. This is called drop foot. Cold hands and feet. Numbness and tingling in your hands and feet. Curled toes, which is called hammer toe, and high arches in your feet. Symptoms that would be found in a baby would be trouble grasping and holding on to things, taking longer to hit developmental milestones like holding their head up, sitting, crawling, standing, and walking, and falling more than other babies their age. So CMT is considered to be a rare disease. It affects 1 in 2,500 Americans, and we estimate about 3 million people worldwide.
You know, that number 1 in 2,500, when I was reading up on CMT and studying it, was that it's the most common yet unknown disease that's out there. I know you said it was rare, but most people don't know about it, but there's so many cases of it. Would you consider that the case?
Yeah, it's actually the most common rare disease, which is a little bit backwards to say, but I actually personally believe there's a lot more people out there with CMT that just haven't been diagnosed. We might have a less severe or later onset version. And because it's hereditary in nature, a 50% chance that an offspring will get the bad copy of the gene that creates CMT. It often runs in families. So it's really easy to say, well, I just have what my dad had or my mom had or my grandfather had and not realize that there's a name for it and that other people are suffering from the same condition.
It's funny. I want to talk and get personal with here in just a second, but I want to throw a picture up on the screen for folks and kind of talk a little bit about a story that I had a couple of weeks ago. I was with my family. We went to Costa Rica on a biking trip and went with this group called Backroads. I don't know if you've ever heard Backroads before. It's a adventure active vacation, get to bike ride. And we did about 128 miles over 5 days. And for the vacation, treating my family, we got to fly on a great plane, airline down to Costa Rica. And in that, sitting in my seat, as you can see in this picture, there's this big dog, a doodle. I think it's a Saint Bernard doodle mix. And it was like almost 100+ pound dog. And it's laying in the aisle right there. And you can see the flight attendant, she's got this cart turned and she's got her head up kind of in her, in her chin and her hand, kind of like what's going on here? I'm bummed I can't do the service. And I'm sitting there, I'm wondering when my glass of wine is going to come. Anyway, I take this picture and thinking, why don't you move the dumb dog out of the way? Right? That's my first impression. And as it turns out, my wife leans over and I make this comment. She goes, well, Preston, did you realize that the flight attendants, what they do when the captain needs to use the restroom, which is right outside their door, they typically turn that beverage cart and they block the way. And so nothing can be there. And right. So nobody could rush, or that would be a first line of defense in case something happened. I thought, oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's what's going on. But the picture of me seeing the dog with her hand and like she's bummed out, I can't do my service, things like that, was very different, my impression. And so the point in that picture, that story that I wanted to share with everybody today is that things don't always seem the way they first appear. Wouldn't you agree that that's the case often? And there's this idea out there, Laura, about hidden challenges. And the reason why this episode is so personal to me is that I have CMT, like a number of others, 1 in 2,500 people that are out there. I've had it since birth, and it's something that I've dealt with and struggled with. And we'll explore a little bit about our common bond around that as we go through it. But I want to tell people, the listeners today, that there are many people out there that have CMT, but there are even more people that have challenges that we are totally unaware of. It could be a physical ailment, disease. It could be mental illness. It could be any other challenge that they're having at home, financial, whatever. And it hits home with me all the time when people say, hey, think about the baggage somebody else is carrying into the situation and using empathy. It makes a big difference. How would you respond to all of that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think I've spent my career in the nonprofit sector, all organizations that have been focusing on healthcare research. And I've had the great pleasure and privilege to work with many families that are facing great strife and personal struggle from all sorts of different diseases. And it provided me with a wonderful lens to look at everybody with empathy. This is like waiting in line at a Starbucks to managing my team thoughtfully. Everybody's carrying something, and sometimes it's really heavy, and it might have been a journey of a lifetime for them to get up and do that Tuesday. And I think if you can approach people that way and leadership that way, you're not only going to be a better leader, but you're going to make the world a better place.
So tell me about your own personal experience with CMT. I think it's unique that you're running an organization, the CMT Research Foundation, and you also struggle with the condition. Tell me, one, how does your personal experience affect the way you're running the organization? You see it, the fundraising, the research, everything that you're doing around that.
I've had a real 180 experience with CMT, I feel like, in the last 90 days, and I'm very proud of it, actually. So CMT does run in my family. My father's mother was diagnosed with CMT. My father was diagnosed in the early 2000s. He's from a big family, one of 7. And so I knew about CMT, but I really wasn't worried about it. It wasn't a huge topic of discussion around my family, around what we were working towards. It never really seemed to hinder anybody directly. And I never put a lot of thought into it. I've been an athlete my whole life. You mentioned going out and cycling. I'm a big cyclist. I like to do big cycling events a couple times a year. I work out almost every day. And about a year and a half ago or so, I started noticing a big change in just the way that I could do certain tasks. My balance was off. I definitely noticed if I overexerted myself, it was a lot worse. I had a little bit of a gripping issue starting predominantly on my left side. And I had a lot of fear in the back of my head and an unwillingness, if I'm being vulnerable, to really face it. I kept roughing it off. I just need to stretch, need to work out harder. I need to do better. And all the while, this is looming in the background as something that I probably need to face and soon. Knowing if this was CMT obviously created a big challenge for me personally, because I have children and there's a 50% chance that one of my children would also carry this disease. So I emphasize greatly with those out there that might be in this position where they know it's around and they're having symptoms, but they don't really want to face it. So serendipitously, Preston, I do feel it was that way. I was guided here. I had a colleague put this opportunity in my desk. I've been a nonprofit executive leader for 15 years. I was already CEO of a similar sized organization working on Lyme disease research. And so I'd already stepped into a role that was very similar. And when I went through that professional journey that I could do this and maybe want to continue doing a role like this. And I've had to face this increasing neurological symptoms head on. And so I started the interview process. And throughout the interview process, as I got closer to being a final candidate, I was telling myself, you're going to have to face this. You're going to have to go and understand what's happening with some of your symptoms. Could be CMT, could be something else. I don't know. I wasn't offered the role because I could potentially have CMT. That was serendipitous and gave everybody chills. That really wasn't the impetus. I'm here because this is what my background professionally brought me to, and I can really, I feel, steer this organization to great success. But while I've been onboarding, I've been going to see physicians. I got genetically tested. I've done some additional testing to understand what's happening with me and facing it head on. So going through the mantra of the only way out is through, I have completely embraced that and said, if I can make a big impact in this space and I have the opportunity to face this with such direct vulnerability, I'm going to embrace it and do it. So I have been genetically linked to CMT type 2W, the very, very rare subset of CMT, which is already a rare disease. And I'm still actively understanding what that means for me, what that means for my health, what that means long term. But having CMT Research Foundation here, the board of directors, the volunteers that are already active, was such a wonderful, warm hug for me as I started to go through this journey. I actually attended CMT's research convention, which is an open meeting at the end of September in Cambridge, Massachusetts. If you can't travel, it's actually recorded and live streamed, and we have all the videos of the past presentations on our website, cmt.org. So you can go and read and listen to presentations on what's happening in the latest research around CMT. But I attended that knowing I would be CEO, but not announced yet. So I was just a patient in the room in the background and just sitting with patients and being in the room with the best researchers in the world that are working on this every day was the impetus for me to feel exceptionally brave and supported as I announced that I was also a CMT patient for this community and took this role head on.
That's powerful because it's moves beyond then, in my mind, the difference between empathy and sympathy, right? Empathy is you can cognitively understand somebody in the shoes they're in, right? You can stand in their shoes, if you will. Sympathy, in my mind, is then where you've actually experienced what they have. And so you can connect in that level. And so I think that brings you to a whole different level, Laura, as being a CEO of this organization, to use your word serendipitous, right? Because you get it. And it's more than just, it's a personal thing for you and a cause and a call. So that's great.
There's over 135 known different subtypes of CMT, and they're finding new ones all the time. So it was also important for me coming in as CEO to understand the full spectrum of CMT, all the different subtypes. At that convention specifically, we heard from patients who were in their early 20s and were already in a wheelchair or had severe mobility issues because their disease progression was much more advanced than maybe what I have. And so being CEO of this organization, coming in with my own experience, it's important that I use the network and the community that we have to be able to represent all the different subtypes of CMT.
That's awesome. It breaks my heart. I was telling Carla, my wife, the other day, because I'm on Facebook and I'm some of these CMT groups, and some of them are like CMT Athlete, which shows all these people lifting weights and all that. I think it's awesome, fun. But then there are other ones that people do have worse conditions than maybe you and I have that are bound to a wheelchair. They're in pain constantly. So it's a challenge. I wanted to share real quick just with the audience my perspective on all this, because I had this early onset with CMT. And so, but I, like you, Laura, love sports. And so I've always been competitive, played baseball, played basketball, did all those things. I may have been a little bit slower than the rest of the kids, but I hustled more than they did. And so that's what made up for it, if you will. But I knew that I was never going to progress in sports beyond a certain level, right, on it, and some things that held me back. So I started recognizing my physical limitations when I was younger. But what that did for me, though, and I saw this in some other family members, it forced me to understand and find out, discover what my strengths were. And I think that's true for anybody that has some type of challenge in their life, to say, instead of saying, here's what I can't do, it's here's what I can do. And it's finding your strengths, your talents, your skills, your abilities, building on those, amplifying those, developing those so you can contribute to the greater good in society, work, community, church, those types of things. And the fun part in all this, and this has been a thorn in my side, because I'm constantly aware of it every day. I wake up with it, right? To give the audience an idea of some of my symptoms, when I walk on non-carpeted floors, so hardwood floor, cement floor, it feels like walking on glass. I've had some treatments that helped that last year, feel a little bit better, but it's just hard standing in a shower, right? I've had 2 tendon transfer surgeries on my right ankle. I walk with a limp. It's kind of funny. I was there was an administrative assistant at the Coca-Cola company. I think she's since no longer there, but her husband came and did some handyman work for us. And he came and introduced himself, and he said, "Yeah, my wife said that you're the one that has that little limp." I thought, wow, that's a way to remember somebody from work, right?
Yeah.
On that. It's not what I did. It was that I had just a little bit of a limp because of the tendon transfers. I could go on and on about it, but my choice is not to be a victim. Again, it's to go back and say, okay, well, these are the cards that I've dealt. How do I deal with those? And finding those strengths. And the Lord has blessed me with certain things. I can speak publicly in front of groups, and I've got that talent around that. Writing, the different things that we do. And so my point in that, not to belabor the point, but the point is that just because you have a challenge in your life, like whether physical or mental or whatever it is, you've also got some strengths. You've got talent, skills, and abilities. How do you lean into those, develop those, and do well?
That's right. Give back. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk a little bit about your leadership philosophy, Laura. Let's move out of the CMT thing, because this really the discussion is around about emerging leaders. And so tell me, who influenced your leadership style? How did you develop that over time?
I like to joke that I accidentally fell into nonprofit, the whole field. I had gone to school, my undergraduate degrees in psychology, and I was working in the mental health field. I have about 6 or 7 years of experience working inpatient, outpatient. I thought that's what I want to do, right? I want to help. The whole basis is always around helping people, being in a really challenging environment, something that was fast paced and ever changing. But my full goal was to give back. But my youth didn't. I went to school fundraisers didn't really include a lot of philanthropy. I wasn't really surrounded by volunteer engagement or anything like that. So for me, as an athlete, I was a collegiate track runner. I was handed a flyer for Team in Training, which is a Leukemia Lymphoma Society based athletic endurance event. You can fundraise and you can train into a program. And so I was like, yeah, I want to run a full marathon. I'm going to do this with the training program. Didn't know how to fundraise. So I took that journey. I embraced it head on. I trained for a marathon. I raised $4,000 and said, I'm completely hooked on using this path to help change problems in the world. I want to help in the nonprofit sector. So began entry level at LLS. I worked my way up to executive director. I was there as an executive director for about 8 years. And I learned everything I know about nonprofit development and work from that organization, which was a fabulous gift to me. A mentor of mine that I still stay in touch with is Mark Rothmere. He's actually the president and CEO of the Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation. And he is just a wonderful gift to the nonprofit sector. His outlook on the world, his ability to motivate people that have influence to take a step and a leap of faith to get involved in nonprofit mission is like no one else I'd ever seen. And so early in my tenure, he sort of saw me and I saw him, and we stayed in touch, and he's really motivated me to believe in myself, to think bigger, to continue to harness some natural skills I've had, to continue to do the best work that I can in the sector. And Mark is so wonderful in his philosophy. He taught me one of the mantras that will forever stick with me is do the things that drive revenue first. Like there's a lot you can do in the nonprofit sector. There's a lot of people you can help and touch, but when you're have limited resources as a leader, you have to make some decisions. And he said, it just comes down to making a difference in those patients' lives every day. And so if you can't walk into a patient's room or come home, or for me, look into the faces of my children every day and say, I did the best for your future, then I'm not focused on the right thing, right? So if I have to give any shout out to a leader that's really shaped me, it's Mark.
I love that. Thank you for that. What makes a nonprofit successful? I've done a lot of research on this over the past month because I'm thinking about doing something myself as well, right? And so I know there are inputs.
Mhm.
Those are the money, the volunteers, everything
Mhm.
else. But then there's the what you might call outputs or impact. And
Mhm.
that's what I heard you pointing toward was that impact when you're sitting across from somebody and showing that you've actually helped them.
Yeah.
Tell me, how do you keep focused on the impact or the outputs versus the inputs?
Yeah, it's really hard. You're always going to be operating as a business. So a similar business model to any for-profit business, but with just a percentage of the resources. So, organizations, a lot of nonprofit organizations don't have HR teams, don't have IT teams. They're really working in a bare bones model because you have to decide as a nonprofit, if you have $1 to spend, should it be spent on marketing or should it be spent on mission? Right. And oftentimes that is a really difficult choice because if you don't spend it on marketing, then you're not going to get the word out of what you're doing and attract more donors and more supporters and more volunteers. But if you don't spend it on your mission, then are you really driving forward what you intended to do? So I think what makes the right recipe for a nonprofit is having a strong, clear mission. It's your North Star. Every single decision has to be supportive of that North Star. And it's really easy to fall into a position where you've attracted volunteers, donors, supporters, staff that want to wiggle you in different directions, right? We have one lane, one focus. And here at CMTRF, that's getting a therapeutic to market for CMT. There are no therapeutics right now. There's absolutely no drug that's approved for this disease. And it was founded in 1886. So it's about time that we get this done. Our carve out, our specific reason to exist is to do that very thing. Every day we have to face decisions on should we be doing a PSA telling people what CMP is? Would that help us attract more donors? But is that going to get a drug to market faster? Is that the goal, right? And so you have to have a really clear mission and understanding. You have to attract a diverse group of people that can support you. This is your board of directors, your volunteer base. It cannot be done alone, and you don't have enough resources to really hire the staff that you need. So attracting high impact, talented volunteers that will give their time to say, let me help steer you. Let me help you with that PR stuff so that it doesn't accrue cost on the mission, and giving that in-kind contribution can be just incredibly powerful for a nonprofit. Again, that North Star on, am I helping the patient today is very, very important. Understanding what other activities happening in your disease space from the nonprofit sector is also really important.
Mm.
My whole career, I've noticed, people adding into a nonprofit, but it's a mission that's pretty similar to another nonprofit that's already in existence, right? So I think it's important to understand, am I adding value when I add this nonprofit in that might, take donors away or distract? Or can I carve out a piece of the pie that's missing in the overall equation? Okay.
Mm.
80% of this equation is covered. Can I take on the 20% that isn't covered today so that it helps accelerate the entire mission forward? These are the types of things that I've seen in successful nonprofits versus ones that tend to flounder or flatten out or fold.
Yeah, that's really good. So, and to summarize, one would be maniacally focused on your mission, and don't get distracted by everything else on it. You've got to know if you're hitting your mission and putting all your resources, thoughts, decisions, problem solving that you do against that mission. Two is the people, right? So you got to have the right people on the bus, as Jim Collins talked about, and it takes a village truly to get things moving in the right direction. And then the other piece is I use the word pie. And I love, so you've got a certain pie. Can you contribute to that 20% that's not covered? Or I might challenge to think, how do you grow the pie overall too, instead of just that one? So it could be either one that you're doing. And how do you add value? I think that's so important. And why what you just said is so important, because I read a statistic the other day, Laura, that there are over 200, there's one nonprofit organization for every 200 people out there.
Yes.
Let that soak in for a minute. A lot of people clamoring for money, a lot of causes, a lot of people want to do great things, but only a few of them are truly effective. And I'm sure the CMT Research Foundation is effective in what you're doing because you're focused on the mission, you've got the right people, and then you figured out your differentiation, how you add value.
Absolutely. And competitiveness is part of business. I wouldn't take that away from the nonprofit sector. That's not my intention to advocate for. I think having, multiple organizations focusing on driving the same activity forward that's going to solve a problem is going to help overall. You're going to get more attention that way. But do it thoughtfully, collaborate in the background, pay attention, doing that market analysis to understand what everyone else is doing so that you can strategically align yourself to add value versus, directly compete would be really a thoughtful way to move forward if you're going to, run a nonprofit yourself or start one. Like, what should fit in? And if they're doing A and B, can I do C, or can I help them do A and B with the work in tandem? Or should I get to D and E because they're going to need that by the time they get through the things they're doing? I'll be ready to take it to the next level. And those kinds of thoughtful market analysis are really important when you're considering.
I always laugh too. I tell people, because, working for Coke all the years I did, I told them that if I ever went into the beverage business myself, I would go in and try to be the best number two that was out there. Because Coca-Cola's already figured everything out. And then you had Pepsi come in and they copy everything, right? And then you go. So there's a little bit of differentiation out there, but not a whole bunch. And take that from a marketing guy that's been around Coke for a long time. People listening to this that are my Coke friends, sorry, I'm just kidding a little bit about that, tongue in cheek, if you will. Hey, Laura, is there anything else that you'd like to mention before we close out and move into the lightning round today? Any words for leaders out there, aspiring CEOs? Anything else on CMT that you'd like to mention?
Well, there's a lot of things I'd like to get into, but I think when we're leading into, if we go off the idea of serendipity, I think that the universe has a tendency to push and pull us in ways that you don't always anticipate your career will go, or maybe your hobbies or your passion points on the side of your career. And I would just encourage everybody to take a look at where you can add the most value, right? We spend our lifetime selecting skills that could really make a huge difference, especially in the nonprofit sector. If you're not engaged already with a nonprofit, hey, look, I know one called CMTRF that would love to meet you. Find something that's passionate for you and give back in this way. Because, if you have a marketing background, as you do, Preston, and you could give a few hours a month to an organization like CMTRF, it could save us millions of dollars over time and really advance our mission to a point where we get a therapeutic market even sooner than we anticipated, because your skill, a lifetime of development of skills, could be what we could never afford to get. So it doesn't really matter what you have in your background. A nonprofit out there could definitely benefit from you. So look at what's going on in your community, look at the gaps and needs in your cultural background, what's going on in the world, what's going on in a disease space, and find a place that you can give back to. It just makes the world go round.
Yeah, it does. And it's funny, most millennials want to give back. They want to make a difference. And so now is their opportunity. Instead of waiting to be an old guy like I am doing what I'm doing, you can jump right in right now.
Yeah, you don't have to write big checks either to support nonprofits. I think that's a common misnomer. Your time and talent can be more valuable sometimes than a check, although we'll take that too.
That's powerful. So if you have a marketing background, you want to help Laura, give her a call at 1-800. No, I'm just kidding. We'll go from there. So
yeah, .org, and you'll find my information. We're very transparent and open. You can find me on LinkedIn, and definitely send me a note. You do not have to have CMT to support. If this is something that's moved you, or you feel like this is the right time, or you just love Preston and want to impress him through us, then please reach out.
So good. So thank you for your conversation today, Laura. It's been just a wonderful discussion around the condition, if you will, the disease of CMT. Bringing awareness to that is really what I was hoping to do. You explained about it really well. And all of that, what I want to do right now is just jump into our lightning round questions, which would be kind of fun. These are questions meant for people to get to know you a little bit better. So there are some goofy questions that we'll just ask real quick that will entertain the folks that are listening. You ready? Hey, what's your favorite comfort food? Wait a second. So you're in the central PA area. Do you know what comfort food means?
Yeah, I do. It's usually a whoopie pie here.
Whoopie pie.
I don't like it now. I recently discovered peanut butter mousse pie. Put like a chocolate mousse pie, peanut butter mousse, and that is currently my comfort food.
Very nice. And you live in Central PA, the home of Hershey, PA, which I used to work for too. So peanut butter goes really well in that market. So it's good. Hey, if you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
The skill of persuasion to help people get engaged and involved and support all the missions that I like to get behind.
Well, I think you seem to be very persuasive. So it would be just amplifying that skill and talent out there. So there you go. Very good. Hey, what's the last show or movie that you binge watched?
I am someone who likes to repeat shows. So I have watched Lost about 4 times now, and I probably will watch it again. Netflix just adopted it back to life. So there's just something about that show that I just love to play in the background while I'm doing other things.
Yeah, very good. Like it. Lost, I've heard a lot of the critics rave about that, and the ratings were good while it was on the air. So I don't get it, so I'll have to watch it at some point to see. So
You have to watch it. Actually, it's the big controversy is were they dead the whole time, and this was an afterlife experience or not?
really?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll look at it with that lens. That's excellent. Okay, good insight. Two more here. If you could trade lives with any fictional character for a day, who would it be?
Hermione Granger
Who is that?
from Harry Potter.
Why would you choose Hermione?
She's the book smart companion to the hero that really is the hero of the day. She's always the one that has read ahead and studied and has the answer for the bravery that she's surrounded by. So I just think that would be an awesome experience. Plus, wouldn't want to be a wizard or a witch for the day.
Yes, and you can go to Universal Studios and be Hermione for a day
I've
too
done
in a
it.
park there. So yeah, it's fun. Last one. What's a quirky habit you have that always makes you laugh?
I have a little touch of adult ADHD, undiagnosed. I'm sure most women in their 40s are feeling the same way. I have a really quirky habit of trying to race the clock to get somewhere exactly on time. And I have to laugh at myself because it's probably every day I'm on my way to somewhere. And I'm in the same boat I was the day before. Like, if I don't hit those 2 lights red, I'm going to make it just on time. So seems to be a silly way to go about life, but there's some adrenaline rush that I get out of it that I keep doing it.
And it sounds like your competitive spirit too playing a role in that, right? So very good. Hey, Laura, you've been a lot of fun today. Thank you for gracing us with your interview and discussion today. So important what you're working on and toward. And my hope is personally that there is a cure someday and some advancements that I'll see in my lifetime, or at least in the next generations, that will make a big difference for everybody. Thank you for your time today.
Preston, thanks for having us.
What a great conversation with Laura. Adversity isn't the end of the story. It's often the beginning of something greater. Challenges like CMT remind us that strength comes in many forms, and hope is found in the ways that we rise above. To learn more about the incredible work of the CMT Research Foundation, visit cmtrf.org. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to P Cubed and leave a review. Your feedback helps others discover the podcast and join us in these inspiring conversations. And then connect with me, Preston Poore, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram for more updates and inspiration. Thanks for joining us. Take care and talk soon.